Okay, so welcome to the tutorial on how to build the story game. Now, before we begin, just remember that if you would like to get full access to the finished project, so you'll have all of the code written and the game will be functional and you'll just be able to take it and without having to copy any of the code from this tutorial, you can become a channel member, and you'll need to become a premium member. To do that, you can click on the join button, which is below this video next to the subscribe button, and it just is a great way to support the channel. And as well as that, like I said, you get access to the source code from the video. But if you don't want that, don't worry, you can just follow along, copy the code as I do. But just a quick word from me: if the game doesn't work for some reason, if the code that you've written isn't working and it's not like mine, then what you should do is try to debug it, because most of the time I get people telling me that it doesn't work, but actually it does, and they've just made a mistake when they've copied out the code. So I'd say 99% of the time, if it doesn't work for you, it's because you've done something wrong. You've copied it wrong, you've forgotten to add a line of code that I did, for example, you've made a typo, etc. And a lot of the time, it's hard to notice these things. So you could be looking over your code for a while, and you could be like, oh, it's not working, and not realize that it's actually you that has done something wrong. So I'm just outlining that at the start. If you do, whilst you're watching this tutorial at any point, if you do find out or realize that your code isn't working, that your game isn't working like mine, don't worry, pause it, have a look through, try to make sure, see that you've not done anything stupid like a typo or something. But there are places you can go to get help. You can use the Roblox dev forum. It's a great place to upload your code and to ask for help if it's not working. Just make sure to explain what's not working in detail, and there will be people who will help you. Without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. So we're going to click on the base plate template here and just load into a simple base plate. And I'm going to go into the workspace over here, and I'm going to click on the base plate, click on the spawn location in the Explorer panel, and just delete it. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the kit. So I've created a kit which will insert all of the important things you need for your story game. So we're just going to skip the building of the lobby and the map, because you might want to build your lobby in a different way. You might want to make it look different to mine, and since everybody's might be different, we're just going to use a pre-made kit which I've created in advance that you can use for free to just give us a bit of a kickstart, get us a bit of a head start on the tutorial, so that we don't have to waste time with the building when the thing that matters is the coding, right? We want to make sure that the code is in there, and then once the game's completed, you can go on and then change your lobby, your map, etc. So I'm going to click on the toolbox, and we're going to click on, well, actually, you need to get the model first. So I'll leave a link to the description where you'll find a link to the model. So if you click on that link and then just click on get or take, just make sure that you buy or access the model. It's free, and that will just put it into your toolbox. So once you've gone ahead and done that, go to your model section, click on this little icon here, and then it should be here, look, story game kit. And then I'm going to click on that, and it will insert everything we need for the lobby into our game. So I'm going to just close down the toolbox here. And what we've got is we've got the little spawn area over here. We've got the 2 lanes for our trucks, and then we've got a dark zone. This is where the trucks will move into, and it will get darker and darker, and then we will teleport them. So what we need to do first is just move some of these assets around, because they're not in the right place. So we're going to take the exit GUI. Now this is the thing that will show up on the screen when you get in a truck, because you might want to actually get out of the truck before it leaves, so we give the player an option to do that. So if we take this exit GUI and we just drop it into the starter GUI here, okay? So once it's in the starter GUI, we're just going to leave it there. And then the 2 remote events here called leave truck and show exit GUI, we're going to select those, and we're going to just drag them into the replicated storage down here, okay? So we've got the grass, spawn area, and truck lanes in the workspace. Anything that's in the workspace can be seen in the viewport here. So we can see our trucks, we can see our grass, we can see the spawn area, etc. So that's everything we need. Now, once we've done that, we need to start coding these trucks, because they won't do anything for now. So we need to make it so that when you walk up to the truck, you sit in it. And you might be able to see here that if we go into let's see, we go into if we press Alt here, press down Alt or Option if you're on a Mac, and you hover over, you can see that there's a part here. And this is like a wall, and when we touch this wall, we are going to put the user into the truck. So we've got a wall for each side, and we're going to create some scripts. We're going to write some code which will detect when you touch one of these walls, and when you do that, we're going to put the user into the truck, and they will sit in the truck here, and then this will count down from 30 seconds. I know it says 10 seconds, but we can change that. And when it gets to 0, the truck is going to move all the way down here into the dark zone, and then we will teleport the users. So not too much coding will be used in this episode. It's going to be fairly short, and then we'll be able to move on to creating the story. So let's get started. So if we go and click on those walls again by pressing Alt or Option on a Mac, you'll see that we've got lane 1 detector in the lane 1 model inside the truck lanes, and we've got lane 2 detector. Now, both of these have scripts inside of them called Detector Script, and I've written these already just to speed things up so we can move on to coding the truck. But I just wanted to explain what this does, because I want to make sure you're understanding the code. I want to make sure that you're learning how to become a Roblox developer, because this stuff is quite important. So this script is inside a part, and that means that we can say script.parent. So the parent is the thing that the script is inside. So in this case, we're talking about the lane 1 detector when we say script.parent. And since the lane 1 detector is a part, it has some events. And this is a touched event. So a touched event will trigger when a player touches the part. So when the player goes up close to the wall and touches it, then we are connecting that event trigger to this function. And a function is just some pre-written code that we can run at a certain point. So we are running this code when a player or an object touches the lane 1 detector. But the problem is, anything could touch the lane 1 detector. It doesn't have to be a player. It could be the truck might accidentally touch it, or another part might touch the lane 1 detector, and that's obviously not a player. So we only want to put the player in the truck if they are a player. We don't want to go and put, let's say for example, we don't want to put this sign in the truck if it accidentally touches this wall because it's quite close to it, or if something accidentally falls from the sky, or you get the idea, right? So we are just checking to make sure that the thing that hit the lane 1 detector is stored within this function. It's called an argument. So this hit, you can kind of think of it as like a substitute. So if we were to substitute the hit with the actual part that touches the brick, because we don't know what is going to touch this lane 1 detector, so we're just using this hit argument as like something that we can substitute in later to be the actual thing that touches it. So anything that we do to the hit will be done to any object that touches our lane 1 detector. So we're just calling a function in the game.player service called getPlayerFromCharacter, and we're using the parent of the thing that hit the brick, because the thing that's going to touch it, if it's a player, it's going to be one of their body parts. So it could be their left arm, their right arm, their right leg, their left leg, for example. So, and you can actually see if we play the game, you'll see that in your Roblox character, which spawns in the Explorer, you'll see that you've got a left foot, left hand, left lower arm. So when you touch this detector brick, it's not going to be your player that touches it. It's going to be one of your body parts. So it could be your left lower arm, your left lower leg. So if my left arm touched that invisible part, then the hit would be my left arm. It wouldn't be my player. And the body parts are inside of my character model. So the parent of that body part will be my character model. So we're just doing a check here to make sure that there is actually a player attributed to my character. And this will either be true or false. So this function, which is a built-in function to Roblox, it's already pre-coded by Roblox. It just allows us to do a simple check to see if there is a player linked to this character or this model. So for example, if a part like that sign touched it, then its parent would be the model of the sign probably. So it would probably be this sign model here. And this function would just tell you that no, that is not a player. So it would return false. And then we're just storing that in a variable for now so that we can reference it later on. A variable is just a piece of data, piece of information that can be stored under a name like PLR or player. That's what it's short for. And that will hold the true or false value. So if it is a player, then this if statement is going to run. It's going to execute any code inside of it. So if the player is true, so if player then is the same thing as saying if the player variable is equal to true. So if it is true, then we're going to find them a seat on our truck. And to do that, we are going to say script.parent.parent. So you can see the script here. The first parent is the lane 1 detector. The second parent is the thing that the lane 1 detector is inside of. And the lane 1 detector is inside of a model called lane 1. You can see if we collapse and expand, you can see it's inside of it. And then the parent of that lane 1 is the truck lanes, right? So inside of the truck lanes, it will be lane 1 because we're going back 1 step, 2 step. So look, Detector Script is where we start off at script. We go back a step to the parent, which is lane 1 detector, and then we go back another step to the parent of that, which is the lane 1. And inside the lane 1, which is the equivalent of script.parent.parent, we have a truck. And inside this truck, you can see here, this is the truck. Inside this truck, we have another model called seats. And inside the seats model, we have a load of seats here. And what we can do is we can go to our detector script and we say :get children. So we are just getting all of these seats here and we're adding them to a table. A table is just a set of data or a set of objects that we can loop through. So we're going to loop through all of those truck seats and we're going to put the player into the seat if it's not already occupied. So V is each individual seat that we look through. So it would be this seat, then V would be the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one until it's looped through every single seat. So for every single seat in the truck, we're checking to make sure it's not already occupied because each seat has a property called occupant. So it's going to be the object of the player that's sitting in it. So we can say if not v.occupant, and that's the same thing as saying if there's no occupant of the seat, then it's empty. And we only want to put them in the seat if it's empty. So this if statement will only run if the seat is empty, and then we can call a function on the seat called sit, and then we just put the characters humanoid in there. The humanoid is an object attributed to inside the player's character, which gives them the ability to walk and move and makes them a player pretty much. And so what we can do is we can specify that player's humanoid, the player who touched the brick, and that will sit them in the seat. And then we're going to set their jump power to be 0. That's a property of their humanoid. Again, another thing that just makes the player work and act like a player. It has a property called jump power, and if that's set to 0, it means that they can't press the space bar and jump out. Instead, we want to show that GUI, which will let them click exit, and then if they do click on that, then they will be teleported back to the spawn area. So we're just firing a remote event to that player, which will enable that GUI to appear. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But then we just break out of this for loop because we found a seat for them. All that this for loop did was just loop through each seat until we found one that wasn't occupied. Now, it could be that all of the seats are empty and the first one that we looped through was not occupied and we didn't have to go through any more, or it could have been that we looped through every single one until we got to the end and the last one was empty, so we could put them in that one. So that's what we're using the loop for. But if we go and play the game, you'll see that if we roll up to one of these detectors over here, you can see it sits us in the seat and the leave button appears on the screen. And if we click on the leave button, nothing happens right now, but that is because we haven't coded it yet. So let's go ahead and look at the code for that now. Now, if we go into the starter GUI and we look at our exit GUI, you can see we've got the exit button and there's a property of that called visible, and that's what makes the GUI appear or not. Now, all we're going to focus on is this client exit button, because I've already put this in the GUI and I've written some code which will make it appear when that show exit GUI remote event is fired. That's what we fired from our detector script here. We're picking it up in our local script and we're making the exit button visible. Now, I also have another event for when you click on the exit button. So when the exit button gets clicked, we're connecting it to another function, and the code that will run when you click on this button is it will make the button invisible again, but it will also fire the remote event called leave truck. We haven't coded that remote event on the server yet, so nothing's happening when we're firing this event, but we want to pick up this remote event, and when a player does fire this leave truck remote event on the server, we can teleport them back to the spawn area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the plus next to server script service, and I'm going to insert a script. I want to call this script leave truck. Okay, so call it leave truck and put it in the server script service. Now all we're going to do is we're going to say game.replicated storage leave truck on server event connect, and then inside of these brackets we're going to write function. We're going to then put another pair of brackets like this. We're going to drop a line, and we should just have this end with a closing bracket added on here. And then inside of these brackets, next to function, we can put player, because this is going to be the player who fires the remote event. So it gives us another reference to them. We don't know who it's going to be, but we can use this player argument so that anything we do to the player within this script will be done to any player who fires the event. And we just want to check to make sure that the player is still in the game. So if player, then we can say player load character like this. Okay, so we do a player load character and then a pair of brackets, because this is calling a function, and this function will respawn the player and it will put them back on a spawn point. Okay, so let's play the game again and see the changes that we've made. So we're going to walk over to our truck, we get placed into the seat, we click on leave, and our player gets respawned. So we're now out of the truck. Okay, and again, boom, you see how it works. So next we need to make our trucks move, because currently the sign is counting down, but when it gets down to 0, nothing's happening. And also I'll walk through the code for the signs as well. Only one of them's working at the moment, but don't worry, we'll make both of them work, and I'll just give you an overview of the code. So if we go into our truck lanes over here and we click on lane 2 and we click on the truck, you'll see that there is a script within this truck, and this is the script which is going to make the countdown on the sign, the reserving of the server for the story game, and making the truck move it. That's what's going to control all of this. Now, it's only in the truck on the right side, okay? That's why the sign on the right side was counting down, but the one on the left wasn't. And that's fine. We can duplicate this script and put it into the other truck once we've gone through it. But I just wanted to explain line by line what's going on in this script. So firstly, let's just focus on this while true do loop. So a while true do loop will run any code inside of it forever and ever and ever, as long as the condition in the middle is true. So it could be a check, such as while 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, or while my variable is equal to true, whatever. But if we just want it to run regardless of the condition, we can say while true do, and this will make a repeating loop which just repeats over and over again and won't ever be stopped until the server is shut down. So this will just keep on making the trucks leave, and then they'll come back, and then they'll leave, come back, teleporting people to and from the story game forever and ever, whilst people are still in the game. So what we're doing first is we are creating a for loop, and a for loop is used to count down or count up, but in this case we're counting down from 15 seconds down to 0, and we're going from, so look, we're going from 15 down to 0, and we're counting down by -1 each time. That's all that we're doing here, and then the value from 15 down to 0 gets stored in this variable called I. So we can refer to the number of seconds to left by saying I. And then what we're doing is we're getting the sign, the wooden sign, which is here. We're getting that wooden sign, and we're saying by saying script.parent, which is the truck, and we're saying .parent, which is lane 2, and we're getting the sign, which is inside of it. And then inside of the sign, there is a part called top, which is the top part. That's got a surface GUI inside of it. And inside a surface GUI, which basically projects a GUI onto a surface like this, there's a text label. and that text label has some text. So we could write whatever we want on this sign, such as subscribe to Alvin Blocks. If you haven't done that already, I do recommend it. So you can write whatever you want on this sign, but we can also update it via a script. So every second, we're going to update it to say leaving in 10, leaving in 9, leaving in 8, etc. So if we go back to our script here in the top, you can see that we're just changing the text property to a string. And a string is just some information, it's a data type which holds text. So if we want to write text, we have to write it in a string like that. But we also want to include the number of seconds left. So what we can do is we can say ... outside of our string. We close them off with with speech marks like that, or a quote mark. We say ... I ... and then we have another string with a space so that the words are separated from our number, and we put seconds like that, okay? And then we just have a wait 1 so that it delays from moving on to the next number. If we didn't have a wait 1, it would count down immediately like that. It could just go 15 to 0, nothing in between, because it's going so fast that we can't notice the difference. So we have that wait 1 delay so we can notice the difference as it counts down each second. So then once it's counted down to 0, if it's out of this for loop, because in a for loop it will go, okay, 15, it will do the code, get to the end, and it will go back to the top. 14, do the code, back to the top. 13, code, you get the idea. So once it gets to the bottom, to this wait 1, once that's finished, it goes back to the top again. And only when it's at 0, so when it goes 1, okay, do the code, 0, okay, we're at 0, so we're going to stop, and then it moves on. So it will only move on when the countdown is at 0. So at this point, and this is a comment by the way, if you see 2 hyphens like this, it's just a comment. So it's where we can add a note to self or just explain what's going on, and the script will ignore it. So when it gets to this point in the code, the countdown is finished. So we want to get all of the players that are in the truck, and we want to move the truck and put them into the server. So what we're doing is we're creating a table to store all of the players that are sitting down, and then we're going to our seats model, which is here, and we're looping through all of those seats again that are in that model. And for every single seat, we're checking to see if that occupant value, occupant property even, we're checking if the occupant property of the seat is it has got something stored in it. Okay, so if there is somebody sitting in this seat, we're going to insert them to this table. So into the players table, we are inserting their player. But since it's their character that's sat in the seat and not their player, which is stored in the player's service, they're two different things. We're getting their player from their character. Okay, if we play the game very quickly, you'll see that in the workspace, we have the player's character, but in the player's service, we actually have their player. And the player is where we want to store their player. We don't want to store their character. So we're calling another function of game.players called getPlayerFromCharacter, and we are passing through some information for the occupant. And it's going to be the occupant, I believe, is their humanoid, and the parent will be the character object. Yes, because look, the occupant value is the humanoid, the inside of the character. So like I said earlier, the humanoid is that object which all players' characters have inside of, and when we use the sit function to sit them in the seat, we are referring to their humanoid. So that will just get all of the players sitting in the truck, and it will put them in this table. So we now know all of the players who we need to teleport to the server. So we can then do a check, an if statement, to make sure there are actually some players sitting in the truck, because there could be no players in the truck, and we would loop through all of the seats and find out that there's no occupants. So this table could be empty, and it would have no data inside of it, no elements inside of it. So to check how many objects are in a table, in this case how many players are in the table, we put a hashtag before the table name. So hashtag players will return the number of objects in this table. And if it's greater than 0, so if there is at least one player in this table, we will move the truck. Okay, we will move the truck. And to do that, we're again counting up from 0 to 150. We're going up by 1 each time though. Okay, And this is going to be the number of studs which the truck moves by. So I'm going to make the truck move 150 studs in the forward direction. So it's going to go from here, it's going to go all the way, let's use the other truck here, it's going to go all the way into there, okay? And that's about 150 studs away, I measured it. So we want the truck to move one stud at a time to 150 studs away. And so what this for loop is going to do is it's going to count up from 0 to 150. And I is our variable again. The I variable will be that running counter. So it will be 1 the first time, then it will be 2, then it will be 3, then it will be 4 studs, then it will be 5 studs, 6 studs, all the way up to 150 studs. So every single time this loops through, it's going to move the truck forwards, okay? It's going to move the truck forwards by about 1 stud, okay? That's what a look vector is. When we say script.parent.hitbox.cframe.lookVector, that is getting the truck, and then it's getting the hitbox part, which surrounds it. So basically, it's just one big part that covers the entire truck. And then it's getting its C-frame, which is its position with rotation. So it's getting that, and then the look vector gives us the direction that it's currently traveling in. So the look vector would be facing in this direction, okay? And it would be about 1 stud long. So every single time this for loop loops through, it's translating the truck, so it's essentially moving it in a direction by about 1 stud each time. But when you do that 150 times, then it's moving it 1 stud 150 times, and eventually you will get to this dark area and it will look like the truck is moving. So essentially it's just moving forward a stud, forward a stud, forward another stud, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another, and it will keep on doing that until you can see it's starting to, move away from the truck. The truck would be moving with it, but it would move the entire truck to the into the darkness here. So let's just put that back where it belongs, in there. There we go. So it would move the truck forwards, okay? And when we move that hitbox, because the hitbox is the primary part, when that primary part moves, when the hitbox moves, the rest of the truck will move with it. So if you changed 150 to 30, for example, it would only go 30 studs forward. So the 150 is just how far it's going to go in studs. And then once it's got to the darkness, we are going to reserve a server for our story game. But we haven't made the story game yet. So what we need to do is we need to make another place for our story game. And you can see that there's an ID in the reserve server function here. We're going to remove this because this will not work for us. We need to create our own place, okay? That was from my own story game, but we need to make our own. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the base plate here, and we're going to click on File, and then we're going to click on Publish to Roblox As. We'll go Publish to Roblox As. And then we're going to click on Create New Game. And I'm going to call my game Alvin Blox's Story Game. Okay? I'm going to click on Create. And once that's created, we've now created our game's universe. So we've published it to Roblox, and we can create sub-places. So like I said in the other video, we can have one main place, and then we can have places attached to it that we can teleport players to. So a different place where you can have another server. So we're going to click on the View tab, and we're going to click on Asset Manager. Then we're going to click on Places, and you can see there's no places here. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to click on Add New Place. Okay? And it's created Alvin Blox's place number 1017. So I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call it Story Place. Okay? And now we have 2 different places. We have the story game, which is this one here. This is the lobby area. So I'm going to right click and rename this to lobby, actually. Okay? But this is what will appear on the Roblox game page, right? So if you wanted your game to have its own name, such as like camping, then you'd call it camping, for example. But the story place, that doesn't matter, because no one's really going to see that. Because this is just the place where they're going to get teleported to, where the actual game is going to be. Anyway, once we've done that, I'm going to right click on my story place, and I'm going to copy the ID to the clipboard. Then I'm going to go back to my script, and I'm going to paste that ID in here, okay? And this is telling the game, telling the script which place we want to teleport the users to, okay? So once we've done that, we are basically calling the teleport service up here at the top. And this is the service we need to use in order to be able to teleport players in Roblox to a different game. So we say teleport service, reserve server, and then we give the ID, okay? So that's like the access code to get in. So we've basically said, look, hey Roblox, I want to teleport all of these players to my story place. Can you give me an access code so that I can let them in? And then it will return that access code in the server data here. And then all we need to do is say teleport service, teleport to private server. So it's going to create, it's going to create this new server for our players with the place ID. So we're telling the game which place we want to take them to. We've got the access code from the server data, which we've just accessed by saying reserve server. So we've reserved a server for our players to go to, a nice private server for them to all be together. We've got the access code for it, and then we're passing that to our teleport to private server function, and we're also giving the list of players who we want to take with us. Okay, so that's why we needed to get the players earlier, because we needed to have a list of all the players that are going to come with us, because not all players that are in the lobby are going to be going to the story place, because some might have just joined, some might be in a different truck, some might just be hanging out in the lobby, etc. And once we've teleported them, we can return the trucks back to where they belong at the top of the lobby here. So we want to bring them back. So to do that, we can count down. We can count down again. Well, we're counting up really from 0 to 150, but we're just translating it by a negative value this time. So when we translate it by a negative number, such as negative 150, then it's going to come backwards in the same direction. And again, we're using a weight 0.01, just so that each time that the eye changes to a different number, you can see the car moving. We have that slight delay, so you can see it moving between each stud. Otherwise, it would just move from the start to the end straight away and you wouldn't notice it. So let's publish our game and let's go and try it out. So I'm going to go and click on File and click Publish to Roblox. And then I'm going to go to Home. I'm going to click on Game Settings. I'm going to go to Security. I'm going to go to Permissions. And I'm going to set it to public or friends. You can set it to friends if you want. I mean, it depends if you want your friends to be able to play it or just anyone on Roblox. So I'm going to click on public. I'm going to click on save. And then I'm going to click on this little link icon over here. And if it doesn't give you, it's not working for some reason, but it should give you a link to your game. If you don't manage to get the link, like I haven't, you can go to your web browser and you can go to the Create tab on Roblox. I'll show you now, and there'll be a link to your game. So here we are in the Roblox website. So if you click on Create in the top corner, in the top middle, or you go to roblox.com/develop and you click on My Creations, you should see your lobby here. So I'm going to click on the Start Place, and I'm then going to click on Play. Okay, so here we go. We have joined the place. Again, you can see only the right side is working for now. That's because we haven't put the script in the other truck. But I can join my truck here. It's going to leave in 3, 2, 1. And then the truck begins to move, one stud at a time. And we're going into the darkness, and then it's going back. Don't worry, we do stay in the truck, but not for long. Maybe we should have a delay in there for about 10 seconds just to make sure the players get teleported. But then you can see I get teleported to my lobby place. So this is where we're going to have the story game, where we're going to have the script control the story, etc. And that's what we will be looking at in the next video. So if you want to go ahead and check that video out, you can do so now. The thumbnail is on the screen, or the link is in the description for you. Don't forget, if you want to become a channel member, you can go ahead and click on the join button. Otherwise, let's just quickly add that script back to the other truck, and then we'll be ready to move on. So back here in studio, I'm just going to go into the lane 2, into the truck. I'm going to take the script, right click, copy. I'm going to go to lane 1, into the truck, and I'm going to paste it in there, and it will do the exact same thing on the left side. There you go, you can see the left side is working as well. So I'll see you in the next video.